The cantina was loud that night. Soldiers from 12 different species sat at long metal tables, drinking and laughing after a hard week of training. The smell of food and smoke filled the air. Lights hung low from the ceiling, giving everything a yellow glow. Captain walked in through the main door. She was small, very small. She stood only 5 feet tall, and her body was thin like a young tree. Her black hair was tied back in a simple knot. She wore the standard gray uniform of the Human Defense Force, and on her chest were 3 medals that most soldiers never earned in their whole lives. But nobody looked at the medals. They only saw her size. She moved quietly to the bar and sat on a tall stool. The bartender, a 4-armed creature named, nodded at her with respect. He knew who she was. He had heard the stories. He placed a glass of water in front of her without asking. "Thank you," said softly. At the far end of the cantina, a group of mercenaries were making noise. They were big, all of them. The biggest was a creature named, he belonged to a species called the. They were known for their strength and their pride, stood almost 8 feet tall. His skin was dark green and covered in thick scales. His arms were like tree trunks and his teeth were sharp like knives. Had been drinking for hours. His voice was loud and he liked to talk about himself. He told stories of battles he had won. He talked about enemies he had killed. The other mercenaries listened and laughed at his jokes. Then saw. He stopped talking. His yellow eyes moved slowly across the room and landed on the small human woman sitting alone at the bar. A smile spread across his face. It was not a kind smile. "What is that?" said loudly. He pointed one thick finger at. "Is that a soldier, or did someone bring their child to the cantina?" The mercenaries laughed. Some soldiers at nearby tables looked up. They saw what was happening. A few of them recognized. Their faces became serious. Stood up from his chair. The floor shook a little under his weight. He walked toward the bar with slow, heavy steps. Each step made a loud sound. He stopped right behind and looked down at her. "Little human," he said, "are you lost? The nursery is on the other side of the station." Did not turn around. She lifted her glass and took a small drink of water. Her face showed nothing. This made angry. He was not used to being ignored. Among his people, ignoring someone was a great insult. He leaned closer. His breath smelled like old meat and strong alcohol. "I am talking to you, little thing," he growled. "When a warrior speaks, you listen. Do they not teach manners on your weak little planet?" Still said nothing. She placed her glass down gently on the bar. Sergeant was sitting at a table nearby with 3 other human soldiers. Was a tall man with short hair and a scar on his left cheek. He had served under for 2 years. He knew what she could do. He started to stand up, but one of the other soldiers, a woman named, grabbed his arm. "Don't," whispered, "just watch." "But he doesn't know," said through his teeth. "He has no idea who he's talking to." "That's the point," replied. "Let him learn." Was now very close to. He reached out with one massive hand and grabbed the back of her stool. He turned it around so that she faced him. Now they were looking at each other. His huge body blocked out the light. His shadow fell over her completely. "Look at you," said with a cruel laugh. "So small, so fragile. I have killed beasts bigger than you with my bare hands. I have crushed skulls thicker than your whole body, and they send creatures like you to fight in wars." Some of the alien mercenaries laughed again, but the human soldiers did not laugh. The room was becoming quiet. People were starting to pay attention. "Humans," continued, shaking his head. "Soft skin, weak bones, short lives. You break so easily. I do not understand why the galaxy allows your kind to call yourselves soldiers. You are not soldiers. You are toys. Fragile little toys that break when the real fighting starts." Looked up at him, her eyes were calm. There was no fear in them, there was no anger either. They were just empty, like deep water with no bottom. "Are you finished?" she asked. Her voice was quiet and steady. Blinked, he had expected fear. He had expected tears or shaking or begging. This calm response confused him. It also made him more angry. "Finished?" he repeated. "I have not even started, little doll. I have fought in 37 battles. I have killed more enemies than you have seen in your entire tiny life. What have you done? What battles has a creature your size ever won?" A soldier at a nearby table, a young man named, let out a short laugh. He quickly covered his mouth, turned to look at him with dangerous eyes. "Something funny, human?" demanded. Shook his head quickly. "No, sir, nothing funny, just, you might want to ask someone about station before you continue." Station frowned. "What is station? Some human training ground, some place where you learn to run away from real fights." The cantina became very silent. Even the mercenaries stopped laughing. The name station seemed to hang in the air like smoke. The bartender stopped cleaning glasses. He looked at with something like pity in his 4 eyes. Then he looked at and slowly stepped back from the bar. "Station," said softly, "was not a training ground." She picked up her glass and finished her water. Then she placed the glass down and turned back to face the bar, showing her back once again. "Wait," grabbed her shoulder and spun her around again. "You do not turn away from me. Tell me about this station. Tell me what makes it so special that everyone becomes quiet when they hear its name." Looked at the massive green hand on her shoulder. Then she looked up its face. For the first time, something changed in her eyes. It was not fear, it was something else, something older, something darker. "You want to know about station?" she asked. "Yes," insisted. "Tell me, what happened there that makes humans act like it matters?" Was quiet for a long moment. The whole cantina was watching now. Every eye was on the small human woman and the giant alien warrior. "At station," finally said, 3,000 soldiers died in 6 hours. The enemy sent a Titan-class war machine. Do you know what that is?" Smile faltered slightly. He had heard of Titan-class machines. Everyone had. They were weapons of mass destruction, moving fortresses, 200 meters tall, armed with enough firepower to destroy a small moon. "I know what they are," said, but his voice was a little less confident now. "Good," replied. "Then you know that when a Titan comes, there is only one thing to do. You run. You retreat. You save who you can and you accept that the battle is lost." She paused. The silence was complete. "At station, we could not run. There was nowhere to go. The Titan had blocked all escape routes. 3,000 soldiers were trapped with no hope." Released her shoulder. He took a small step back. "I was there," said. "I was the only one who walked out alive." The words hung in the air like a death sentence. Stared at her. His yellow eyes were wide now. The mockery was gone from his face, replaced by something that looked almost like the beginning of fear. Sergeant stood up from his table. He walked over slowly and stood next to. "Captain," he said respectfully, "should I tell him the rest?" Shook her head slightly. "No need, Sergeant. I think our friend here will learn soon enough." She stood up from her stool. Even standing, she barely reached his chest. But somehow, in that moment, she did not look small anymore. She looked like something ancient and dangerous wearing the shape of a small woman. "Enjoy your evening," she said too. Then she turned and walked toward the exit. Watched her go. His hands were shaking slightly. He did not know why. Behind him, the whispers had already started. Stood frozen in the middle of the cantina. The door had closed behind the small human woman, but he could still feel her presence like cold air on his skin. Around him, the noise slowly returned. Soldiers went back to their drinks. Conversation started again, but something had changed. The whispers had begun. Walked back to his table where the other mercenaries waited. They looked at him with confused expressions. One of them, a thin creature with blue skin named Vex, leaned forward. "What was that about?" Vex asked. "Why did you let her walk away? You had her. You could have crushed her with one hand." Sat down heavily. His chair groaned under his weight. He grabbed his drink and took a long swallow, but the alcohol tasted sour now. "Did you hear what she said?" asked quietly. "About Station." Vex shrugged his narrow shoulders. "Some human battle, who cares? Humans fight battles all the time, they lose most of them." "She said she was the only survivor," replied. 3,000 soldiers died and she walked out alone. "So she ran away," another mercenary said with a laugh. "She hid somewhere while the others died. That is not impressive, that is cowardice." Wanted to believe this. He wanted to agree that the small woman was nothing special, just another weak human who got lucky, but something in her eyes had disturbed him. That empty look. Like she had seen things that broke most creatures. Like she had walked through fire and come out the other side as something different. "I need to know more," muttered. He stood up again and looked around the cantina. His eyes found a table of human soldiers, the ones who had been sitting with that sergeant. He walked toward them. The humans looked up as his shadow fell over their table. The young one named tensed slightly, but the woman called remained calm. She even smiled a little. "Can we help you?" asked. "Tell me about Station," demanded. "Tell me what really happened there." Exchanged a look with, then she gestured to an empty chair. "Sit down," she said. "This is not a short story." Hesitated. Among his people, sitting with enemies was seen as weakness, but his curiosity was stronger than his pride. He pulled the chair over and sat down. The chair was too small for him, but he did not care. Station, began, was a supply post on the edge of the outer systems. Nothing special about it. Just a place where ships stopped to refuel and resupply. About 5,000 people lived there. Soldiers, workers, families. "Families," interrupted. "There were children." "Yes," said, "there were children." She paused to take a drink. Her eyes had become distant, like she was looking at something far away. "The enemy chose Station on purpose," she continued. "They wanted to send a message. They wanted to show that no place was safe, so they sent a Titan." "One Titan?" asked. "For a supply station, that seems like too much." "That is exactly the point," said quietly. "They wanted to destroy everything, leave nothing behind. No survivors, no buildings, no hope." Felt a chill run down his spine. He had seen destruction before. He had caused destruction before. But something about this story felt different, heavier. "The Titan arrived without warning," continued. "It dropped out of space right next to the station. By the time the alarm sounded, it had already destroyed the main docking bay. All the ships, gone in seconds. There was no escape." "What about the defense systems?" asked. "What defense systems?" laughed bitterly. "It was a supply station, not a fortress. They had a few guns, small things. They hit the Titan with everything they had. It did nothing, like throwing pebbles at a mountain." Nodded. The commanding officer ordered a full retreat to the inner sectors. He hoped they could hold out until help arrived. But help was 3 days away. They had hours at most. 3,000 soldiers, said, remembering's words, against a Titan. 3,000 soldiers with standard weapons, corrected. No heavy artillery, no mech suits, no ships, just rifles and courage. Was silent. He tried to imagine it. 3,000 soldiers watching a 200-meter war machine walk toward them, knowing they were going to die, knowing there was nothing they could do to stop it. "What happened next?" he asked. "They fought," said simply. "They formed defensive lines. They set up barricades. They did everything they were trained to do, and the Titan walked through them like they were made of paper." "The machine had a name," added. "The soldiers called it the Iron Giant. It had weapons that could melt steel from a kilometer away. It had shields that could stop anything they threw at it. It was not a fair fight. It was not a fight at all. It was a slaughter." His hands tightened around the edge of the table. He had fought in many battles. He had seen friends die, but this was different. This was hopeless. "Where was the small woman during all this?" he asked. "Your captain." "Lieutenant at that time," said. She was leading a squad on the outer rim of the station when the attack began. Her whole squad was killed in the first hour. She was wounded, badly. A piece of metal went through her leg. She could barely walk. "But she survived," said. "Yes," replied. "She survived, but not by running, not by hiding." Another soldier at the table, an older man named, spoke up for the first time. His voice was rough and tired. "I was not at station," said, "but I have seen the reports. I have watched the footage. What that woman did, it should not have been possible." "Tell me," demanded. His voice was no longer mocking. It was almost desperate. "Tell me what she did." Shook his head slowly. "Words cannot describe it. You need to see it. You need to see what a human is capable of when they have nothing left to lose." "The footage exists?" asked. "Yes," said. "The station had security cameras everywhere. Most were destroyed, but some survived. They recorded everything." "Who has this footage?" "Lieutenant," answered. "She is the station's intelligence officer. She keeps records of all major battles. She uses them for training purposes." Stood up suddenly. The chair scraped loudly against the floor. "Where is this lieutenant?" he demanded. "I need to see this footage. I need to understand." Looked up at him with an expression he could not read. Was it pity? Was it satisfaction? He could not tell. "She is in the communications building," said. "Block 7, but I should warn you." "Warn me about what?" "Once you see what happened at station, you cannot unsee it. You will never look at humans the same way again. You will never look at Captain the same way again." Turned and walked toward the cantina door. His steps were quick and heavy. The mercenaries at his table called after him, but he did not stop. He did not look back. He had to know. Behind him, picked up her drink and smiled. "Do you think he is ready?" asked. "No one is ever ready," replied. "But he needs to learn. They all need to learn. The galaxy looks at us and sees small, weak creatures. They see our thin skin and our short lives, and they think we are nothing. And then they meet someone like Captain," added. "And then they meet someone like Captain," agreed. "And they realize that size and strength mean nothing when you are fighting something that has already accepted death." The cantina continued its normal noise around them. Soldiers drank and laughed and told stories. But at one small table, 3 humans sat in comfortable silence, thinking about a supply station on the edge of space where 3,000 people died and one woman became a legend. Outside, walked through the station's corridors toward Block 7. His mind was full of questions. His chest was full of a feeling he did not recognize. It took him several minutes to understand what it was. It was fear. Not fear of battle, not fear of death. He had faced both many times. This was different. This was fear of discovering that everything he believed about humans was wrong. Fear of learning that the small, fragile creatures he had mocked were capable of things he could not imagine. He reached Block 7 and found the communications building. He stood outside the door for a long moment, breathing deeply. Then he went inside. Lieutenant was waiting. It was almost as if she had been expecting him. She was a small woman like most humans. Her hair was gray and her face had many lines. Her eyes were sharp and intelligent. "You are the mercenary," she said. It was not a question. "You insulted Captain in the cantina." "Yes," admitted. He felt no shame about it, or at least he was trying not to feel shame. "And now you want to see what happened at station." "Yes." Studied him for a long moment. Then she nodded and turned toward a large screen on the wall. "Sit down," she said, "and prepare yourself. What you are about to see changed the course of the war. What you are about to see is the reason why the enemy fears humans more than any other species in the galaxy." Sat down, his heart was beating fast, his hands were sweating. Pressed a button and the screen came to life. The footage began. The screen showed station as it once was, a busy place full of life, ships coming and going, workers loading cargo, children playing in the recreation areas, soldiers walking through clean corridors, laughing and talking with each other. Then the image changed. A shadow fell over the station. Something massive appeared in the space above. The camera shook. Alarms started screaming. People began running. The Titan dropped from the sky like a falling god. Had seen Titan-class war machines before, in pictures, in reports, but seeing one in actual footage was different. It was 200 meters of death and destruction, metal and fire given form. Its body was covered in weapons. Its legs were thick as buildings. When it landed on the station's outer platform, the entire structure shook like it was going to break apart. "By the gods," whispered. "Watch," said simply. The footage jumped to a different camera. Soldiers were scrambling to their positions. Officers shouted orders. The first defensive line opened fire on the Titan, hundreds of weapons firing at once. Bright lights filled the screen. The Titan did not even slow down. Its shields absorbed everything. Then it raised one massive arm and fired back. The defensive line disappeared in a flash of white light. When the light faded, there was nothing left, just melted metal and silence. The footage continued. Camera after camera showed the same terrible story: soldiers fighting, soldiers dying. The Titan walking through the station like a monster through a village. It destroyed everything in its path. Buildings crumbled, corridors collapsed, fire spread everywhere. "The first 2 hours were the worst," explained. Her voice was calm, like she was discussing the weather. The Titan moved methodically through the outer sectors. It was not in a hurry. It wanted to be thorough. Watched in silence. His earlier pride felt foolish now. He had bragged about 37 battles, about enemies he had killed, but he had never faced anything like this. No one had. "Where is she?" he asked. "Where is Captain?" "Wait," said. The footage changed again. This camera was mounted on a soldier's helmet. The image bounced and shook as the soldier ran through smoke-filled corridors. Other soldiers ran beside him. They were retreating. Their faces showed terror. Then the camera turned and saw her. Lieutenant was limping badly. Her left leg was wrapped in bloody bandages. Her uniform was torn and burned. Her face was covered in dirt and ash. She was carrying a rifle that was too big for her small body. But she was not retreating. "All squads fall back to Sector 7, a voice shouted through the communication system. "Repeat, all squads fall back. We cannot hold this position." The soldiers around began to pull back, but she stopped. She turned and looked toward the approaching Titan. It was still far away, but getting closer. The ground shook with each step it took. "Lieutenant," another soldier called. "We have to go." The commander ordered a retreat. Did not move. She was staring at the Titan with those empty eyes. The same empty eyes had seen in the cantina. "Lieutenant," the soldier tried again. "Go," said. Her voice was quiet but clear. "Get the others to Sector 7. I need to check something." "Check what?" "There is nothing to check. We need to leave." "Go," repeated. This time it was an order. "I will catch up." The soldiers hesitated. Then they turned and ran, following the retreat order. The camera stayed on for a moment longer before the soldier wearing it also turned to leave. But in that moment saw something change in his face. She was not just looking at the Titan. She was studying it, analyzing it, like a hunter watching its prey. "What is she doing?" asked. "Thinking," replied. "Planning." The footage jumped ahead. 2 hours had passed according to the timestamp. The station was in ruins now. Fires burned everywhere. Bodies lay in the corridors. The Titan had destroyed nearly everything. In a small room somewhere in Sector 7, the surviving soldiers had gathered. There were less than 500 left. They were tired, wounded, and hopeless. Many were crying. Others just sat in silence, waiting for death. The commanding officer, a man named Colonel Park, stood at the front of the room. He was old and gray, and his face looked like it had aged 10 years in one night. "Help is coming," he said. His voice was weak. "But it will take time. We need to hold on. We need to." "Hold on with what?" someone shouted. "We have nothing. Our weapons do nothing. The Titan will find us. It will kill us all." Others began shouting too. Fear had taken over. Order was breaking down. Then stepped forward. "Everyone quiet," she said. Her voice was not loud, but somehow it cut through all the noise. People stopped talking. They turned to look at the small woman standing beside their colonel. "I have been watching the Titan," said, "studying how it moves, how it fights, how its shields work." "So what?" a soldier demanded. "Nothing can break through those shields. We have tried everything." "The shields are strong," agreed, "from the outside, but they are designed to stop attacks coming toward the Titan, not attacks coming from inside." The room became very quiet. "Inside?" Colonel Park asked slowly. "What do you mean inside?" Pulled out a small device and activated it. A holographic image of the Titan appeared in the air. It showed the massive machine in detail, every weapon, every armor plate, every joint. "Here," pointed to a spot on the Titan's back, "there is a maintenance hatch. It is small, too small for most species to use, but not too small for me." Leaned forward in his seat, watching the footage with wide eyes. "If I can get inside the Titan," continued, "I can reach its core, the power source. If I destroy the core, the whole machine shuts down." "That is suicide," someone said. "Even if you could get to the hatch, even if you could get inside, the core chamber is guarded by internal defenses. You would be killed before you got close." "Maybe," admitted, "but if I do nothing, everyone here dies anyway. The Titan will find this room eventually. It will kill every single person here. Men, women, children, everyone." She paused and looked around the room. Her eyes met the eyes of each soldier one by one. "I am not asking for permission," she said. "I am telling you what I am going to do. I am going to climb that machine. I am going to get inside, and I am going to destroy it or die trying." "You cannot go alone," said, recognized him from the cantina. He looked younger in the footage, stronger. He had not yet earned the scar on his cheek. "You cannot come with me," replied. "The hatch is too small for anyone bigger than me. This is a job for someone my size." Felt something twist in his chest. Her size, the thing he had mocked, the thing he had called weakness. It was the one thing that might save them all. Colonel Park stepped forward. He put his hand on his shoulder. "You understand what you are volunteering for?" he asked quietly. "Yes, sir." "You understand that even if you succeed, you probably will not survive?" "Yes, sir." The old colonel stared at her for a long moment. Then he reached up and removed something from his neck. It was a chain with 2 metal tags hanging from it. His identification tags. Every soldier wore them. "Take these," he said, pressing them into his hand. "If you make it, when you make it, bring these back to my family. Tell them I died fighting. Tell them I was proud." Looked at the tags in her hand. Then she looked up at the colonel. "I will, sir," she said. "I promise." The footage changed. A new camera showed the outside of the station. The Titan was walking slowly through the wreckage, searching for survivors. Its massive head turned back and forth, scanning. Then something small appeared on the screen. A tiny figure moving through the ruins, moving toward the Titan, not away from it. She was carrying a bag full of plasma charges on her back. In her hand was a climbing tool. She moved quickly despite her wounded leg. She used the wreckage as cover, staying hidden from the Titan's sensors. Watched in disbelief as she got closer and closer to the machine. Any normal person would have run. Any normal person would have been paralyzed with fear. But she moved with purpose, with determination. Like she was already dead and had nothing left to lose. The Titan stopped. Its sensors had detected something. Its massive head turned toward the direction where was hiding. She froze. She pressed herself against a broken wall and did not move. The Titan scanned the area for several long seconds. Then it turned away and continued walking. Waited another moment. Then she moved again, faster now. She was almost at the Titan's feet. And then she began to climb. Paused the footage. The screen showed clinging to the Titan's leg, a tiny figure against the massive machine. She looked like an insect trying to climb a mountain. "This is where it begins," said quietly. "This is where your education starts, mercenary. Watch carefully, and never again judge a human by their size." She pressed play, and the footage continued. Climbed. The footage came from multiple cameras now. Security cameras that had survived the destruction, satellite images from above, even a drone that someone had managed to launch before they died. All of it showed the same impossible thing, a small human woman climbing a 200-meter war machine like it was nothing. The Titan did not notice her at first. Its sensors were designed to detect threats, weapons, vehicles, soldiers with guns. They were not designed to detect a single person clinging to its leg like a spider. Moved slowly and carefully. The metal surface of the Titan was smooth in places and rough in others. She found handholds where she could. Where she could not, she used her climbing tool to make them. The bag of plasma charges on her back swayed with each movement, but she did not let it slow her down. 10 meters, 20 meters, 30. The Titan took a step and almost fell. She grabbed a piece of exposed wiring and held on as the massive leg moved beneath her. The world swung wildly. For a moment, she hung in empty air with nothing below her but hard ground and certain death. Then the step was complete and she found her grip again. She kept climbing. Was barely breathing. His eyes were locked on the screen. His hands were gripping the arms of his chair so tight that the metal was bending. "How is she doing this?" he whispered. "How is she not falling? How is she not giving up?" "Because she made a promise," replied, "and humans keep their promises." On screen reached the Titan's midsection. Here the armor plates were larger, flatter. She could move faster. She pulled herself up hand over hand, her wounded leg leaving streaks of blood on the gray metal. Then the Titan stopped. Its head turned. Its sensors swept the area. Something had finally registered. A warning light was blinking somewhere inside its mechanical brain. Intruder detected. Small. Insignificant, but present. The Titan's hand began to move. Looked up and saw the massive metal fingers reaching for her. Each finger was bigger than her whole body. If they grabbed her, they would crush her like an insect. She did not hesitate. She jumped. For one terrible moment, she was flying through the air with nothing to hold. The Titan's hand passed through the space where she had been. She reached out, grabbed a cable hanging from the machine's chest armor, and swung herself behind a metal plate just as the hand came back. The fingers scraped against the plate, missing her by centimeters. Made a sound he had never made before. It was something between a gasp and a prayer. Was breathing hard now. The camera could not see her face, but her body language showed exhaustion, pain, fear. She was human. She felt all of these things. But she did not stop. She found the maintenance hatch. It was exactly where she had said it would be, small, almost invisible among the massive armor plates. A normal warrior would never fit through it. A certainly would not. It was barely half a meter wide. Perfect for a small human woman. Opened the hatch. It was locked, but she used a cutting tool to break through. The process took precious minutes. The Titan's hand kept searching for her, getting closer each time. Metal fingers scraped against armor plates all around her hiding spot. Finally, the hatch opened. Squeezed through. The footage changed. Now it came from inside the Titan itself. Internal security cameras that still functioned. They showed narrow corridors filled with wires and machinery. Emergency lights blinked red. The air was hot and smelled like burning oil. And there was, crawling through the machine's guts like a parasite. She moved quickly. She knew the layout. She had studied it before coming. Left at the first junction, straight through the power conduit, down through the cooling system. Every turn brought her closer to the core. But the Titan knew she was there now. Defense systems activated. Small drones appeared in the corridors. They fired at her with tiny weapons. Not enough to kill a soldier in full armor, but more than enough to hurt a small woman in torn clothes. Did not have time to dodge them all. Bullets hit her arms, her legs, her back. She screamed in pain but kept moving. Blood trailed behind her on the metal floor. One drone got too close. She grabbed it with her bare hands and smashed it against the wall. Another came at her face. She shot it out of the air with her pistol. A third tried to block her path. She threw a plasma charge at it and ran through the explosion. "She should be dead by now," said. His voice was shaking. "Any normal creature would be dead." "Yes," agreed. "Any normal creature would be." Reached the core chamber. The door was sealed. Thick metal designed to withstand almost anything, but was not trying to break through it. She was looking for another way in. She found a ventilation shaft above the door, too small for most people, but not for her. She climbed into it and crawled through the darkness toward a faint glow ahead. The core was beautiful in a terrible way. A sphere of pure energy floating in the center of a large chamber. It pulsed with light like a mechanical heart. All the power of the Titan came from this one point. Destroy it, and the whole machine would die. But the chamber was guarded. Combat drones floated around the core, bigger than the ones in the corridors. More weapons, more armor. They were designed to stop exactly what was trying to do. She looked at her bag, 5 plasma charges left. She looked at the drones, 8 of them. She looked at the core, so close, so far. She took a deep breath. Then she jumped down into the chamber. The drones reacted instantly. They turned and fired, was already moving. She rolled behind a piece of machinery, avoiding the first wave of bullets. She threw a plasma charge at the nearest drone and hit it perfectly. The explosion destroyed 2 drones at once. 6 left. She ran toward the core, firing her pistol. Another drone fell. The others adjusted their positions, trying to get a clear shot. She threw another charge and took out 2 more. 3 left. But now she was out in the open, nowhere to hide. The remaining drones surrounded her, their weapons locked onto her small body. Stopped running. She was 5 meters from the core, so close she could feel its heat on her face. The drones fired. She did something no one expected. Instead of dodging, she ran forward, straight into the bullets. They hit her chest, her stomach, her legs. Her body jerked with each impact. Blood flew from her wounds. But she did not fall. She reached the core. She pulled the remaining plasma charges from her bag. She pressed them against the glowing sphere with both hands. And she pressed the button. The explosion was beyond anything had ever seen. The footage turned white, then static, then nothing. When the external cameras resumed, the Titan was falling. 200 meters of metal and destruction coming apart in midair. Fire erupted from every opening. Armor plates flew in all directions. The massive machine that had killed 3,000 soldiers crashed to the ground like a dead god. The survivors in Sector 7 watched through their windows. They saw the impossible happen. They saw victory born from certain defeat. And then they waited. Minutes passed, then hours. The rescue ships arrived the next day. They found the survivors first, 500 people who should have been dead. Then they searched the wreckage of the Titan. They found her. The footage showed the rescue team approaching a pile of destroyed metal. There was no way anyone could have survived the explosion. No way anyone could have lived through the fall. But then the metal moved. A small hand pushed through the debris, then an arm, then a face covered in blood and ash and burns. Crawled out of the wreckage of the Titan like she was crawling out of hell itself. She was barely alive. Both her legs were broken. Her left arm was burned so badly the skin had melted away. She had bullet wounds in her chest and stomach. Her face was covered in cuts and bruises. But she was alive. And in her working hand, she held Colonel Park's identification tags. The rescue team rushed to her. They lifted her onto a stretcher. They pumped her full of medicine. One of them, a young medic, leaned close to her ear. "What is your name, soldier?" he asked. His eyes opened slightly. She looked at the young man. Her lips moved. "Lieutenant," she whispered, "Human Defense Force, Station Garrison." "You're going to be okay," the medic promised. "We're going to get you home." His eyes moved to the identification tags in her hand. The colonel's tags. She had kept her promise. She had survived. Then her eyes closed and she passed out. Stop the footage. The screen went dark. Sat in silence. Tears were running down his green face. He did not know when he had started crying. He did not care. "She spent 8 months in the hospital," said quietly. "They rebuilt her legs, fixed her arm, healed her wounds, but some things cannot be healed. Some things stay with you forever." The look in her eyes whispered, "That empty look, now I understand." "Yes," nodded, "now you understand." Stood up slowly. His legs felt weak. His whole body felt different, smaller somehow, less important. "I need to find her," he said. "I need to apologize." "You will," replied. "But first you need to understand something is not special." Looked at her in confusion. "Not special, after what I just saw." "She is special in what she did," agreed. "But she is not unique. There are thousands of humans like her. Millions. Given the same situation, many of them would have done the same thing. That is what makes humans dangerous, not our size, not our strength, but our refusal to accept defeat, our willingness to die for the people we love." She stood up and walked to the door. She opened it and gestured for to leave. "Go find Captain," she said. "Tell her you understand now. And remember this day, mercenary. Remember it every time you think about judging someone by how they look." Walked through the door. His feet carried him automatically. His mind was still in that footage. Still watching a small woman climb a giant machine. Still watching her refuse to die. He had thought he knew what strength meant. He had been wrong. The station was quiet at this hour. Most soldiers were sleeping in their rooms. The corridors were empty except for the occasional patrol or maintenance worker. The lights had been dimmed to save power. Walked alone through the silence. He did not know where he was going. His feet moved on their own, carrying him through corridor after corridor. His mind kept replaying the footage. The climbing, the explosions, the small hand pushing through the wreckage. He found himself at the observation deck. It was a large room with windows that looked out into space. Stars filled the view like scattered diamonds. Ships moved in the distance, their lights blinking in the darkness. Someone was already there. Stood by the window with her back to him. She was looking out at the stars. Her small form was silhouetted against the endless black. She looked even smaller now somehow, framed by the infinity of space. Stopped at the entrance. He did not know what to say. All his life words had come easily to him. He was a warrior. Warriors boasted. Warriors threatened. Warriors mocked. But now he had no words. Spoke without turning around. "Lieutenant sent me a message," she said. Her voice was calm, empty. "She said you watched the footage." Stepped forward slowly. His heavy feet made soft sounds on the metal floor. "Yes," he said, his voice was rough. "I watched it, all of it." "And now you feel different," continued. "Now you want to apologize, now you understand." Stopped a few meters behind her. He looked at her small shoulders, at her thin arms, at the body that had survived what should have killed her 100 times over. "I do not deserve your forgiveness," he said. "What I said in the cantina, I was ignorant, I was cruel. I judged you by your appearance without knowing anything about who you are." Finally turned around. Her face was impossible to read in the dim light. Her eyes reflected the stars behind her. "You are not the first," she said simply. "You will not be the last. The galaxy is full of creatures who see humans and think we are weak. They look at our small bodies and our thin skin, and they assume they understand us." She walked toward him. Each step was precise, controlled, the walk of someone who had learned to move through pain. "Do you know what I thought when I saw that Titan for the first time?" she asked. Shook his head. "I thought it is so big, so powerful, so terrifying. I thought, we are all going to die. There is nothing we can do." She stopped in front of him. The top of her head barely reached his chest. She had to look up to meet his eyes. "And then I thought, no, I refuse. I refuse to accept that size determines outcome. I refuse to believe that being small makes me helpless. I refuse to let my friends die without a fight." She reached up and placed her small hand on his arm. Her touch was gentle, almost kind. "You asked me what battles a creature my size has won," she said. "The answer is many. Not because I am strong, not because I am fast, not because I am specially trained, but because I do not know how to give up." Felt something break inside him. The wall he had built around his heart, the pride that had protected him from feeling small, it crumbled like sand in water. He did something he had never done before in his entire life. He knelt. The massive warrior lowered himself to one knee before the tiny human woman. His head bowed until his eyes were level with hers. "Captain," he said, "I apologize, not just for my words in the cantina, but for every thought I have ever had about your species. I was wrong, I was foolish, I was blind." Looked at him for a long moment. Her expression did not change, but something shifted in her eyes, something that might have been approval. "Rise of the," she said. "A warrior does not kneel to another warrior. We stand as equals." Stood up slowly. His eyes were wet again. He did not try to hide it. "How can we be equals?" he asked. "After what you have done, after what I have seen, you are a legend. I am just a mercenary who tells stories about battles that now seem like children's games." Turned and walked back to the window. She gestured for him to join her. He moved to stand beside her, and together they looked out at the stars. "I am not a legend," said quietly. "I am a woman who made a choice, that is all. Every person makes choices every day. Some choices are small, what to eat, what to wear, where to go, and some choices are big, whether to fight or run, whether to live for yourself or die for others." She pointed out at the darkness beyond the window. "Out there are billions of beings making choices right now. Some of them are choosing courage. Some are choosing fear. Some are protecting the people they love. Some are abandoning them. The universe does not care about size or strength. It only cares about the choices we make." Was silent for a long time. When he finally spoke, his voice was different, softer, humbler. "You could have died in that machine," he said. "You should have died. Why did you take that risk? Why did you choose to climb a Titan when everyone else chose to wait for death?" His hand moved to her chest, to the place over her heart. "Because there were children in that shelter," she said. 347 children who were going to die scared and alone in the dark. I could not save them all. I knew that, but I could try. I could give them a chance." She turned to look at him. "Size means nothing when your heart refuses to die. I said that in the cantina because it is true. My body is small, yes. My strength is limited, yes. But my heart is as big as that Titan was, maybe bigger, and that is something no weapon can measure." Nodded slowly. He understood now, not just with his mind but with something deeper. "What happened to the children?" he asked. "The ones you saved?" For the first time, something like a smile touched his lips. It was small and sad, but it was real. "They grew up," she said. "Some of them became soldiers. Some became doctors or teachers or engineers. One of them is a captain now, commanding her own ship. She sends me messages sometimes. She tells me about her missions, her crew, her life." Her smile faded slightly. "She named her daughter after me." felt warmth spread through his chest. This was what it meant to be a hero, not the glory, not the fame, but knowing that because of your choices, people who would have died got to live full lives. "Captain," he said, "I know I have no right to ask anything of you, but if you would permit it, I would be honored to serve alongside humans, to learn from them, to understand what makes them fight the way they do." Looked at him with those empty eyes that were not really empty at all. They were full of memories, full of loss, full of a fire that refused to go out. "The Human Defense Force does not accept mercenaries," she said. His heart sank, but continued, "We do accept allies, warriors from other species who fight beside us, who share our values, who understand that true strength comes not from the body but from the will." She extended her small hand toward him. "If you are willing to learn of the, I am willing to teach." Looked at her hand, so small, so fragile-looking, the same hand that had pressed plasma charges against a Titan's core, the same hand that had crawled out of fire and death. He took it in his own massive green hand, his fingers wrapped completely around hers, but he held her gently, with respect. "I am willing," he said, "I am ready." They shook hands as equals, a giant alien warrior and a tiny human woman, standing together before the endless stars. In the cantina, word spread quickly. The mercenary who had insulted Captain was now training with her squad. He carried equipment for the human soldiers. He listened to their stories. He asked questions and took notes. He was learning. Some of the other aliens laughed at him. Serving humans, it was unthinkable, it was humiliating. But did not care. He had seen what size really meant. And he would never judge by appearance again. Months later, when a new threat emerged and soldiers gathered for battle, stood in the front line. Beside him stood Captain, still small, still quiet, still carrying that emptiness in her eyes. A young alien soldier looked at her nervously. "Is it true," he asked, "the stories about her, the Titan?" Smiled. It was not a mocking smile. It was the smile of someone who knew a secret. "The stories do not tell half of it," he said. "Stay close to her in battle, watch and learn, and remember, size means nothing when your heart refuses to die." The battle began. Fire and chaos erupted all around them. And at the center of it all, a small woman walked forward without fear. Because she had already faced the worst the universe could offer. And she had won.